Hello, this is the front desk.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Season 2, everybody. This is episode 36 of the Crackin podcast with your hosts, Dr. Terry Wyman and Dr. Spencer Barron. How you guys doing this fresh new season?
Oh,
good, Lance.
Doing great, bud.
So joining us for the kickoff of this season is the legendary Erin Brockovich, most notably known for her 2000 Oscar award-winning film after her own name, Erin Brockovich, starring Julia Roberts. So how you doing this morning, Erin?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing amazing.
Good, glad to hear it.
Erin, after all these years, you actually gave me an intro to, you go, just say this one. I almost actually used the intro that you texted me, but then I decided, I'll hold off.
Oh, you did? What was that? Let me look that up, Terry.
It was.
Am I not allowed? Did I cuss? Am I not allowed to do that on this podcast?
You can do whatever you want. This is you're allowed. If you didn't cuss, there'd be something wrong.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. I just found what my opening line was. Haha, you want me to read it?
Yeah, you can read it. Coming from you, it makes even more enjoyment.
Yes. So it's hi. I'm the real Erin Brockovich, not Julia Roberts. Ha ha ha. You have no idea how that's confused people 20 years later. I'm known as the brassy, foul-mouthed person you might expect that you saw in the film.
Yeah.
And if Dr. Terry had read the opening, he would have said, and I can assure you, she is the real deal because I've been dealing with her aches and pains and bitches for the last 20 years. So, Dr. Wyman knows me pretty well.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does.
I read that. I'm like, you know what? That does sum it up, though. 20 years of all the stuff we've gone through. I remember the first time we met, and you're like, "Hey, they're doing a movie about me." I'm like, "Shut up! They're not doing a movie about me. Like, who the hell's gonna play you?" You went, Julia Roberts. I went, "Oh shit, you're serious."
And I was then. I wasn't up until the point it finally got casted and done. Yeah. No, I was very leery of Dr. Terry. Because
you were.
It took a long time before I let him adjust my neck. I had a C5, C6 discectomy. And so I was terrified. It took a long time.
Yeah.
But
a long time.
He tricked me and finally got it done. And I've been there ever since.
Yeah. We've gone on quite the journey together.
We have.
So
it's been a long time.
It has been a long time. And people don't, I want to kind of jump right into it. A lot of people know you from the movie, and then there's the TV show recently that you produced, and you're still very
Rebel
active.
At ABC Axed. Yeah, that one. Bring that up, Terry. That's a good way to get me started. Oh, you mean my canceled show? Sure. Go ahead.
I was trying to skirt around it, but what the hell? That was a good one, Rebel, which is you, and how you like to just. The thing I love about you is people always are saying one person can't make a difference, and you are the epitome of one person can make a difference, and you've never, with all the shit that gets thrown at you, you still keep firing back, and I think that's freaking admirable.
Well, thank you. We all make a difference. We just don't believe in ourselves that we do. It's like my book, Superman's Not Coming. There's a lot of us that think or expect that someone else will fix it for us, and we've forgotten to, you have it right there. Did I sign that?
Of course I do.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Did I sign it? He's checking.
Yep. There you go. Look at that, huh? Yeah, I did.
What does it say? I don't have my glasses on. I'm old.
What does it say? It says, Dr. Terry, you're the best doctor that's ever lived, and the West Coast beats the East Coast every time. Something like that.
It doesn't say that.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like me.
No. It says to Dr. Terry and Michelle, simply the best ever. Love you tons.
That is me.
That's what it says. Yeah, that is you.
And that is the
Especially
truth.
you don't
Simply
have
the
one.
best. But we forget to
Yeah.
believe in ourselves. So, I don't think I'm this lone wolf hero person out there. I think we're everywhere. It's just a matter of igniting that person within.
That actually is a subject I would love to hear about, because in this day and age right now, we were just having a discussion about mental health and how crippled people are from all this pandemic stuff. But, being able to talk about what you do and your drive and focus amidst all sorts of opposition, what compels you? What's that fire that burns?
Well, it kind of goes back, I think, way back into my childhood. I'm a dyslexic. So very early on in my life, I was judged and labeled that I was this or I was that. And I always got put in a box, and I don't like that. Actually, most of us don't. So I learned early to recognize that squeeze, if you will, that label, and to find other ways to still be able to accomplish what I needed to do. But I had to get outside of this box of conformity that, frankly, everybody wanted me in. So I think at an early age, I learned I'm not, like everyone thinks, coming in, just flapping my mouth and getting mad. I'm actually very thoughtful. I listen. Mm-hmm. I stay in tune to what my gut is telling me. I know that just sounds so cliche, but it's so true. Like, I'll get a sense like, I don't know if I believe that. I don't know how I feel about that. And I start researching it. I start asking questions. You got this great Dr. Google that you can get onto, and I'll scour this thing till 4 or 5 in the morning. And I see stuff and I'm like, yeah, no, that's bullshit. I'm not, no. And then I'll read something and I'm like, see, now that kind of makes sense to me. I listen to what people are saying. So I take in a lot of different data sets and then kind of sit with it before I make a determination. Do I think that's right? Well, yeah, kind of. Let me ask some more questions. So it's my curiosity. And I've learned not to believe everything everybody tells me. And I rely on that gut instinct to go, the minute it lights up, boom, there it is. Now I'm going to question it. And oftentimes we all have that same sense, but we move away from it because we're not taught to believe it. We're not taught to be in tune to ourselves. It's always what the doctor says or what the pharmaceutical company says. No, listen, your body. Listen to it. So when my hackles are up, there's a reason. I'm not doing it just because I'm some, just angry person at life. I do it because I know my body. I listen to my body. And I have to tell you, 99% of the time, I'm going to give it 99.99% of the time. It's never been wrong. Ever.
I agree.
So, this is great because, first of all, you would make a great chiropractor because obviously we are like the orphans of the medical system that are finding our way. And it's, from 30 years ago, we've made such an impact in healthcare. But I got to tell you, I was talking with a couple of moms, single moms that have multiple children that are somewhat intelligent. And I was telling them about you. And
somewhat
they said
intelligent.
Somewhat intelligent. Well, actually, no. What they actually said was that they weren't intelligent. So I said, yeah, no, I agree.
Dig yourself
Spencer,
out of
you're
this.
part of the problem.
Yeah, dig yourself out of this one, Spencer.
Well, I'm telling you, they had actually said to me that they were not intelligent. I'm actually giving them a step up.
Yeah.
But
they told you that.
The reality is this. This is the pivotal part of the question.
Where are you getting it?
gave you the confidence? They want to know what gave you the confidence to drive you in the midst of all that opposition. What was that inside?
Well, first of all, so to the moms, you were correct. Single moms or married moms. Moms are on the move. And I have to tell you, in all the environmental work I do, 100% of the time, the one that's blowing a whistle is a mom. And usually we'll start with the child. Now, moms generally know their children better than anybody else. And so they believe them. And when they get to asking those questions, I don't know, women can be stubborn. This is one of our actually great traits. And they'll start digging in, especially if it's their family or their child. This is a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
We always think
thing.
stubborn's a bad thing. I think we really need to rethink the things that are great qualities. And stubborn is a good quality. And they tend to use it when they need it, especially when it comes to health and their child. And even in my communities, like when I started in Hinckley, one single mom, Roberta Walker, she couldn't always explain what it was. It was a hunch. It didn't feel right. This takes me back to when I was a kid. My dad used to say, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And she stuck with that. And I'm the same thing. And again, that little alarm goes off, the hair, and moms are keen at this. Listen, my kids think I have eyes in the back of my head. Frankly, I do, because they're like, how did you know that? Because mom's got that gut thing. You're lying to me. And they stay with it. And I really think it's something that's that simple. We know, and what I've learned in my communities is oftentimes they do know, they are right, but they back away because someone says, you're just a stay-at-home mom, what would you know? That's a mistake. I would not be saying that to people. In Hinckley, it's like, you're not a doctor, you're not a lawyer, you're not a politician, so what do you know? Why should we listen to you? I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. I don't have to be any of that to be a human to tell you green-headed, two-headed frogs in green water is not right. And usually the answer is right in front of you, but we either want to look away, we doubt ourselves, we think somebody else is going to fix it, and we move on. So if you stay with that initial moment, whoa, this isn't right. And it hits you. Whoa, this isn't right. It's like, hello. It's like when we get the flu. You could be just going about your business, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I don't feel good. Pay attention to these things. These are gifts that we have that we don't use and we don't believe in.
I was always taught that success is directly proportional to your ability to confront things. And you obviously had the confidence and the instinct to confront things. Were you always like that?
Yeah, that started with the dyslexia. Because see, I knew. But because I wasn't doing it your way, that you think is the right way, I'm therefore the wrong way. No, So I stick real tight to myself. And don't think I haven't doubted myself. I do. So when I'm in question about something, I go very still. My dad used to say, if Erin's talking, you're in a good place. If she's quiet, you're in a bad place. Because if she's quiet, she's thinking.
Yeah.
And so if I'm uncertain, I can do two things. I either strike or I go quiet. And if I'm uncertain because I've got that gut, I've always said if my head, my heart aren't in sync, something's not right. So my heart and gut may be saying something to me, but my brain's saying another thing. So if I have an internal conversation or conflict in that regard, I'll go quiet until I sync it up.
What was it, Hinckley? What got you into, like your book is about national water crisis. What got you into analyzing water. And we know there's a hot topic is plastic particles in water and different things in water and contamination of water. And you're becoming known as the expert about water. How did that all start?
I don't know. Because it didn't start out that way in my mind. I was born and raised in Kansas. And because of my dyslexia and always feeling unaccepted, I found acceptance in my environment, in nature. So I was always outside somewhere. Everything I ever learned, I learned from nature. It's amazing what water can tell you. It's amazing that if you're in tune to nature, you can feel the tornado coming. It's about observations. And I started noticing if something was wrong, I'd question it, or that looks different. So I learned my school for me, and I did make it through school. I graduated high school, went on to college. I didn't necessarily enjoy it, but I would go outside and be in my natural environment, and it taught me more than anything. So kind of just in my being, I was the environment. That's what I've learned. You know, we were so disconnected from it, but we are the environment and the environment is us. And that's just where I felt comfortable. My dad was an engineer. He actually ran the pipelines for Texaco. And I think he saw things that he knew was going to go wrong. And he would teach me about it. He'd sing me songs. I'll never forget it. Growing up in Kansas, you got a lot of creeks and rivers and tributaries and woods, and I was always down there doing something. And he'd come down looking for me, and we'd walk along the riverbank, and he'd kind of just sing it's not under his voice, but he made it up as he went along. You know, watch the water moving down the stream, enjoy it today, Erin, for someday it might not be seen. And that struck me with terror. And it was just in my body. Now let's talk about the fact that we are water. We are water.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm lost, I go to water. If we are water, then we should have the same strength and fortitude that water does. Its resiliency amazes me, even when you poison it.
Yeah.
And that struck me when my dad said that. Well, if there is no water, there is no us. So I think that instinctually water's been in my being. And I went about my life not thinking that I was going to be some, water person expert. And then when I went out to Hinckley, even then, it wasn't about the water. I couldn't figure out at first what was wrong. It was the trees were dying. It was the people were sick. It was, what is this two-headed frog that I'm looking at? And it was a moment of, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, Toto. And I stood there and I'm like, what would be the common denominator that's affecting all of this? And I stopped and I went, oh my God, it's the water. And that's how it started. So in my mind, it wasn't about the water. It was that curiosity. It was something doesn't feel right. It was the power of observation. Why are all the trees dead? Why are all these people, unbeknownst to each other, experiencing the same health effects? Why are the animals covered in tumors? What's going on out here? It was the water. That's how it became. So that's why I would say to you, it didn't start that way. How did I get here? I don't know. I guess through that conversation, I can just tell you how I stepped my way here through my common sense. And common sense often leads you to a logical direction. And I just started following the steps.
What gave you that fortitude to push on even in so much opposition, from the intellectuals, that would make it seem like it was nothing. You knew deep
somewhat
down inside
intelligent
you
people.
didn't stop.
The minute you start pushing on me, that opposition, that's what engages me. Whoa. Now, there's no reason for you to be defensive when I'm asking a very simple question about water and you jump my ass, that's when my flags go up. Whoa. So it's the opposition when you push on me like that. And when there's no logical reason in my mind for you to do that, I go to, what are you hiding from me? And now you're aggravating me because people are sick. Oh my God, do not sit here and tell me that green water that I'm looking at isn't real. And that's exactly what's happening. And that's exactly what happens to mothers. And it is that moment that you're like, yep, no, You're trying to convince me that what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, and what I'm seeing isn't real. And so it's that opposition. It's that moment that I'm like, here we go. Here we go.
Have you seen more of that? Has your spidey senses been tingling more in these last 2 years with everything going on? What are you feeling about that?
It was taking me, a while. You mean COVID? Well,
yeah. Just the last 2 years. Yeah. I mean, just how things are being handled. Do you see things being shoved under a mat and COVID may be a distraction? I don't know. Yeah.
They've always been shoved under a mat. And that's the thing,
what do you
Dr.
see
Terry.
Yeah.
That's why we're mad.
Yeah.
You know what COVID did? The last thing I said on my keynote, February 2020, was this world is spinning faster and faster. And it's spinning out of control. And I don't know, I didn't predict a pandemic, but if we're not careful, we're going to frickin' crash. And we did. And COVID did it. Yeah. And it set us down to stop for a moment and to look around at what the hell is going on out there beyond the COVID. And so I talk about it in my book, especially if we talk about the environment. These issues have been covered up for decades. And whether we went along and got comfortable or complacent or bought an illusion or the bullshit, I don't know. Maybe it all just came together. But I think we're in a real pivotal moment where we've been set down, we got quiet, and we've had a chance to reconnect to ourselves, our thoughts, our being, who we are, our environment, and we're looking around going, yep, maybe something isn't right. So I think we begin to question it. I think that's why we're seeing the turmoil. Oh, don't think that this isn't the moment where I get excited. I'm like, yes, finally, it's a wake-up moment. And for as daunting as the past 2 years have been, I think in hindsight, it can never be a gift because we've suffered through so much. But it was a pivotal point that stopped us, and we're going to take that shift, and we're going to take a different one. And this is a moment of a rebirth and an awakening.
Great.
I believe
Great
that.
way to put it. So you brought up something interesting. We look on Google, and we get so much information from the outside, and now that social media has become so competitive, and mainstream media has been competitive, and they try to stress you out and capture your attention. And how do you know what's real, what's conspiracy theory? How do you determine that for the listeners that really want to learn more?
So that is a moment where I can get kind of quiet. I ask myself questions. I read a lot. I go with if I'm struck on an article I've read, that makes sense to me, that doesn't make sense to me. Having conversations like this or with my friends and being able to hear what they're saying, even if we disagree. I don't know that we always listen effectively, And I've been in that moment too many times. This is probably why I have ground all my molars down to nothing and have crowns, because I'm like, but we have to be willing to hear the other side and how we can take that information or not and use it for, the greater purpose or the greater good. So it's about listening, a conversation, asking questions, and it's also about being able to say, hey, you know what? I wasn't right. I find that one of the most liberating things. We get stuck on an idea, we think we know, and then when it's not that way, instead of saying, wow, I was wrong, I'm sorry, we get mad and keep firing back again because we're mad at ourselves. So I am never afraid to talk it out, think it out, ask questions, and believe me, I can get stubborn and just dig in. But you also have to know when to go, you know what, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should look at that again, and kind of own it when we stumble and we weren't right about a situation. I think that that's really important. And I think that's one thing that I've observed in myself and others that is really going on. We're really mad at ourselves that maybe we missed something, and maybe we were wrong about something, and maybe we don't want to say that. But that's where I say we're way too hard on ourselves, and nobody is perfect, and everybody makes a mistake. And I think of it like the great Super Bowl. And I think we're all in a Super Bowl of life. Coming into the game, you can anticipate, and you're probably going to be correct. You're going to get pushed around. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to do a foul. You're going to drop the ball. You're going to have people booing at you. But that doesn't mean, what are you going to do? Stomp off the field? Or are you going to come back in the game, pick the ball up, you got pushed back 30 yards, and go at it again, and the next time you pick up 60 yards. Man, keep going. So, and if you have to throw the ball down on the field and go take a break, go take a break. But the key is get back in the game. And I visualize it like
Great
that.
Metaphor.
I really do.
You just spoke Spencer. You just spoke Spencer's language right there.
Well, I'm a little more colorful.
Metaphor.
Usually I'm on a chiropractic doctor's health show, but for me in my mind, I'm like, go fucking pick that ball back up. Go. So I get a little mad at myself.
Yeah, you're not on some chiropractic house show. Let it loose there, Erin. Don't show us your real self.
I do have a topic I do want to bring up though for the health bit of and water, and because I keep seeing everywhere, and one of my best friends brings it up all the time, but microplastics in our water that also mimic estrogen receptors, and how that is changing they're finding it in unborn placentas, they're finding it at the top of the Alps, they're finding it from in the air everywhere, and there's microplastics everywhere. How have you seen that in your work, and how do people, and what do you think about that?
Well, it's everywhere, and the microplastics contain the PFAS, the perfluorooctanoic acids, which are everywhere in the world. It's affecting every single thing. It's the largest emerging water contaminant in the world today. And it can wreak havoc on our system. And so, we became industrialized really very fast, and science is slow to catch up with these issues. And we're now finding out, oh, wow, who knew that eating plastics and throwing it into our environment would in fact be bad for your health? I don't know. So it's a real thing. And I think it's really overwhelming for people because so much of our products have gotten into our water that has poisoned our water. Plastics do contain that famous chemical PFOS, AFFF. So it's all firefighting foam. It is all through manufacturing of plastics that they use this chemical. It's in our, fire retardant clothing. It's on our furniture. It's in our food. It's everywhere. So, and it does. Listen, these chemicals, and again, we don't act until the science is in that it causes a problem. Well, you're 20 years late to the game. And now we have a real issue with how it impacts our hormones, how it impacts our immune system, our overall well-being. And we've literally, I call it shitting in our own mess kit with all these chemicals and pollution that have gone into our products and our food and our water. So welcome to the shit show. And there are solutions and ways for us to begin to address cleaning it up, beginning to address what we know about the chemical, what it's done to our immune system. And I think this is something that we really don't talk about very much, but our core being is your immune system. And when we've had these assaults, that we start having a conversation, these assaults have occurred. It's not a speculation. How do we begin to change our diets, change our mindset, focus on that immune system that's designed beautifully to protect us? But it isn't because of all the pollution, such as you were talking about, in the microplastics and in the water, the chemicals that made the microplastics that we've now become. And we are in a great moment that we're finally now seeing it, and science is finally catching up with politics, if you will. That's kind of how I visualize it. Science takes a long time. This particular chemical that I'm talking about, PFAS, I talk about in my book, Superman's Not Coming. And our agencies knew 30 years ago from the manufacturers this was going to be a real problem. That's just documented. This is going to be a problem. So agencies like the EPA have to commission a study. These studies cost millions and millions of dollars, only to find out in 2016, the studies came in. Yeah, Houston, we have a problem. I'm perplexed why we ever let these chemicals into the marketplace first. I would require a study first before you see this outcome that we as the people become the guinea pig. I think that we're seeing an entire breakdown of all of us and our immune systems from these chemicals, from microplastics that we put in our products and everything we do, and then we end up eating them and ingesting them, and the fish ingest them, and then the fish aren't making it and the fish are dying. I mean, this is not a good scenario. But if we're going to just keep arguing about it, we're going to go nowhere. The issue is here. Now, how are we going to move forward in a cleanup process, removing contaminants from the environment, not introducing new contaminants into the environment? I talk a lot about our infrastructures are antiquated. I think we all know that. But when we talk about infrastructures and something being antiquated, we're going to have to look at our water systems. We're going to have to look at our healthcare system. We're going to have to look at our thought process, all of us, and our policies and our institutions and our leaders. It's an antiquated way of thinking that worked back then that doesn't get us into the future. So we have a real issue, and we need to rethink our packaging and our chemicals, and when they get into the water, and when we eat them and ingest them. What possibly do you think the outcome might be? And I think we're really looking at a overall health crisis, not just in America, but throughout the world. And it begins with, your immune system. And with all those chemicals on us, our immune systems are impaired to fight off what we need to fight off. That's just kind of what I see.
Erin, I have a quick question for you. A quick question I want to clarify. Now, were you talking about the breakdown of these plastics into our water from the garbage or are you referring to, and are you referring to like bottled water that everybody's so up on? Is it both?
Oh yeah, plastic is plastic, and they've done a lot to change the production of their plastics to not contain all the phthalates and the PFAS and all of these chemicals in them. I'm not against bottled water because in an emergency situation, you're going to be really glad you had it. I think glass is a good way to store it, especially if it's sitting in sunlight or in a truck or in a distribution system. These plastics can leach out into the water. And they've done a good job at starting to address that. I don't know if we've fully eliminated that issue, but a lot of these plastics historically that have it end up in other products and end up in our ocean and in these microplastics that you're talking about and can create a cumulative problem.
Was it? But you know what's ironic though? You know, it was probably interesting for you, and please elaborate. You know, you fought, you know, how the tap water was coming out as polluted, you know, in your history, and now they went to bottled water, which might have been a great thing because it was water that was in coming from a better place. When did you make that transition to realize that now we got another problem, and it's the plastics, not the tap water?
Well, first of all, Hinkley was groundwater, well water, not tap water. And I'll find 90% of our biggest pollutions are in groundwater, well water, our aquifer systems that municipalities pull from. So water is complicated, yet it's simple. So if I gave you Water 101, when I'm going to talk about municipalities, most of our water comes from surface water, rivers, creeks, tributaries, and depending on the time of the year, we can blend waters and pull waters from our aquifers, which is your groundwater. When water comes into the municipality, they have to deal with organic matter, which is basically dirt. And so to avoid E. coli and different kinds of outbreaks, we chlorinate water. What people don't realize is in the municipal system, the minute water and chlorination meet, you create a very toxic compound called trihalomethanes, which is highly regulated under the Safe Drinking Water Act, which if we would just follow the Safe Drinking Water Act, we'd be a lot better off. But we don't want to do that. We're going to take shortcuts to a Safe Drinking Water Act. So municipalities, that's your first pollution problem, is the trihalomethanes that we create because we have organic matter coming in, which is dirt and fish poop and deer vomit and whatever else it may be. And we chlorinate it so we don't have these outbreaks. Well, when you don't control your dirt and your trihalomethanes get out of control, you can get miscarriage rates go high. A lot of issues start to happening. So municipalities have now decided to add, ammonia to the system. That's a shortcut because they don't want to control their dirt. They add ammonia. Now we've added another chemical. When you add ammonia and chlorination, you create a very angry water, very acidic. And as you start running it through the pipes, and here's another thing, we take for granted, you just turn on your tap and you got water. But let me tell you, from the time it comes out from the rivers, creeks, tributaries through the municipal system, it goes through millions of miles of distribution lines, which is unregulated. Unregulated. You tell me what the hell is going on in there, because these bacteria and viruses are having some pretty big parties down there. So when you've added ammonia and chlorination and water's mad, and it's running through these lead pipes, it's corrosive. So it leaches out all the iron, all the manganese, And guess what? Lead. This is why you're seeing these lead contaminations playing themselves out across this country. Here we go with the antiquated infrastructures that we're going to have to get busy, yet be realistic about. It's going to take a decade to replace. So this is a beginning of our water problems. And then when you have companies that are dumping and injecting chromium-6 and TCE, this is where we're taking all of our hazardous waste and dumping it into our water supplies. We have a huge problem. And there was an old adage, the solution to pollution is dilution. That doesn't work out. We're going to have to figure out another way of what we're going to do and how we rid all of our dangerous, hazardous byproducts and not use it in our water supplies. So
let me ask you if you can comment. Can you comment on the fact that not too long ago, maybe about 5 years ago, they started talking about how all the medications that we pee into the toilet are not being, you can't filter that stuff. And so, you know, whether it be antidepressants or other, anti-inflammatories and the whole whatnot, those are in our waters too that people aren't even talking about.
Well, they are talking about it.
Consideration too.
Yes, that's correct. So one of the best ways, so when you talk about some things that aren't removable, in the microplastics, the perfluorooctanoic acid, which is about 3,000 chemicals designed into one. Yeah, it's really scary what, and this is, I get curious about it. So, and I'm interested in it. For some people, it's just not their thing. But, oh gosh, ask me your question again, because I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's about the medications.
Right.
That we pee into the toilet.
PFAS doesn't break down in the environment either. So the best way to rid, we have a lot of chemicals in the water and a lot of guidelines set and a lot of maximum contaminant limits set. We've got 86,000 chemicals hitting the marketplace, of which agencies only maybe know about 200 and what they're doing. This is where I said, you have to change, the system broke, if you ask me. You have to understand these chemicals and do your studies first before you ever put them into the marketplace. So we've created our own disaster, if you will. Now we're going to have to uncreate that. But reverse osmosis is the best way to remove a plethora of low-level contaminants in the systems. A lot of municipalities are going to GAC systems. It's horribly expensive to do so, but they're having to do so. I'm starting to see some policy changes in some states that all new constructions in homes have to have GAC systems on them. That's the best way. We're still going to have to look at all of the fallout and the chemicals in that and how we're going to dispose of it. That's going to be our big question. But it's pretty overwhelming. And most of the contaminants coming through are captured, are filtered out, are low levels. But you see situations like you did in Hinckley that was groundwater. These aren't low levels. They're right. And I was
I also was going to ask you, and it would have been the perfect moment, is that what do you do for water?
Yeah.
Like, what's in that cup you're drinking? No, I'm kidding.
Well, we all get these municipal water reports. You're supposed to get them quarterly. I tell people, you don't get them, ask for one, because it'll tell you what's in your water. So
did they tell the truth?
Well, that's interesting. You should ask that.
I'm thinking like Erin right now.
If you get a quarter report today, it's a result from the quarter prior. So there's a delay in reporting. There's a delay in what you'll see. Usually people will know, and a lot of the changes in water is you could be going through a chlorine burn, That happens out in this area, and people start calling me, why does my water smell like chlorine? Well, they're probably doing a chlorine burn because they've got a bacteria in the water. And it can be things like that. You can have low levels. Now, mind you, they have maximum contaminant limits, guidelines, and everything else. So you can have a low level. This is what kills me. Atrazine in your water. But since it's not above a recommended guideline or maximum contaminant limit, they can let it into the water.
What is that?
Atrazine, it's a dangerous chemical. Like Chrome 6 doesn't even have any regulations on it. California had one. It's been thrown back down to court. You can have certain limits of pesticides because it's based on the studies and the guidelines, which I've never gotten, because for me, a poison is a poison all day long. And I am not going to frickin', every time I have something in my water, call the National Institute of Health and argue with them 1 part per billion versus 2 parts per billion and whether it will or won't harm me. It's a poison and I don't want to drink it in my water. So those reports can get complicated. And generally speaking, the municipalities do a really good job at taking care of our water. We do have the lead issues. We can have Legionnaire outbreaks, and they usually respond quickly to eliminate the problem. So generally, tap water is okay. I do a couple of things. Reverse osmosis system coming into the house. There's small reverse osmosis systems you can have at your sink. You know, I travel constantly, and I do like to have bottled water. I will search for bottled water in glass. I just feel more protected. Generally, it's okay. So I don't want people to just suddenly realize that, you know, oh my gosh, I can't drink the tap water. Tap water concerns me mostly from overchlorination or delays in reporting. But you just have to use that common sense set of skills. If your water comes out of your pipes yellow or green or orange, you know, is there some erosion going on? Is the water changed? This is a perfect story to share, and I have it in my book. And it happened in Poughkeepsie, New York. And if I didn't pronounce that correctly, I apologize. But their water operator, Randy, was amazing. Remember earlier we were talking about listening to people? So his consumer was his job. And all of a sudden, all of his consumers started reporting to him, what have you done to the water? We've got a rash. When we shower, our skin itches. Our eyes are burning. What's going on with the water? So he was like, what changes have happened here in the municipality? Well, what he had done was he was told to turn on the ammonia feed because they weren't controlling the dirt. He goes, oh my gosh. So he turned the ammonia feed off, and the consumers stopped calling. So upper management told him to turn the ammonia feed back on, and he did. And guess what happened? Everybody started calling. I've got a rash. My kid's skin is burning. My eyes are watering. Well, long story short, it was adding the ammonia with the chlorination that was creating this water condition. And not only was it affecting the consumer, it had virtually destroyed their distribution systems. So they had to replace all of that. But this was a water operator listening, observing, saying, what is this? Changing what it was, and to realize that the entire system was corroded from chloramines. That's what happens when you add ammonia to water. They now no longer use that, and they have good, fresh, clean water. We definitely feel at a national level, if we stopped adding ammonia to the system and had no chloramines, we would reduce lead outbreaks and Legionnaire across the board. And I don't know why we wouldn't do that. But that, to your question, you know, those are things that you need to do as a consumer, and those observations and making a phone call. And if in doubt,
let me ask you. You've mentioned on a few times chlorine and
ammonia.
Ammonia. It's called chloramines.
You know, and I learned as a young kid when my mom had me clean my bathroom, I said I used ammonia, and then I thought, hey, how about if I use some Clorox, because Clorox is good. And I almost, had respiratory distress because the mixture.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoarse for like the next week. So is this the same?
Yes.
Chemicals that you're referring?
Yeah, well, we chlorinate with our water to get rid of bacterias. And when they can't control that dirt and they're creating that bacterial condition, you add ammonia. It's called chloramines.
So
that's
totally
toxic.
So what can the people do about it? Although we're hearing a lot of the problems.
Ask
what
questions.
can each? Okay. And
So
how
I'm
can
going
we
to give you a really good story. I'll give you a really good story, Dr. Terry. So I just shared with you what the water operator did. If we're going to talk about one chemical only called chloramines, we all know what happened in Flint. I was the first person the community contacted about Flint, Michigan, a year before any of you ever knew what was happening. Flint was not about chloramines. Flint switched river water. Okay, you cannot just switch river waters. This fascinates me. There are no two bodies of water anywhere in the world the same. Think about that. See, people think water is water is water. No two bodies of water anywhere in the world are the same. They each have their own fingerprint, if you will. So in Flint, they switched river water from the Detroit water to the Michigan, to the Flint River system. The Flint River water is angry water, and it's caustic, it's acidic. Well, when they started running that through Flint, Michigan with all those old lead pipes, what do you think happened? Massive lead contamination. Now, generally, most municipalities don't switch river waters, and you've all seen the fallout. They knew they were wrong all the way up to the chain of the governor. There's been grand juries, there's been health people, they've all gone to jail. That was a bad cover-up. Most of the municipalities, when it comes to these chloramine issues, are trying to control it, and they can do like what Randy did and stop adding the ammonia and learn to filter appropriately and control their dirt. But in Poughkeepsie, you saw what the operator did. In Hannibal, Missouri, let me tell you what the moms did. They contacted us and had lead levels in some points of the distribution system higher than what we saw in Flint. So we started working with those moms, and they became 5 moms and then 10 and then 15. And they were mom. Oh, hell to the no, I'm not having my kids drink this lead. So they were asking questions. We went out, we informed them, we armed them with the tools that they would need to educate the town further about using chloramines, which is adding ammonia to your system. And boy, howdy, they went door to door. They put up signs. They had their facts. Wow. They would stay up late at night. They would do their little equations on their paint jobs on their house. They made it their job to understand what was happening. So we went back out there, and they wanted to do more. And they happened to have city council elections coming up. And we told them to run for office. They did, and they won.
Ooh.
And what they did was they put a referendum out for the people to vote on who were now educated. Do you want to add ammonia to the system? Yes or no? Unanimously, now knowing what it did, they voted no. They passed a bill, and you can no longer add ammonia to the system, and they have safe, clean, lead-free water. That's what a mom can do. That's what one can do. We think this is all going to magically trickle down from the top. It's not. It's going to start with one, you, in your community. Show up. Show up to city council. It's amazing what goes on in there. They're in there talking to themselves because we don't show up. There's a way for us to educate ourselves, be informed, and show up and fight for your position. We don't have to have an all-out brawl. It's like getting ready to go into the game. No, you might get knocked around, but you go into the game prepared.
Hey, Erin, there's a time you came into my office, and switching gears a little bit of the amazing water. You mentioned that every water is different, every has its own fingerprint, and how amazing. Now, a lot of people get behind things that they feel connected to. And you were in, I want to say, Australia, and you met a scientist who put water in a petri dish. Yeah, I'm letting you get it out. You put water in a petri dish, and then you had a thought, and it showed up in the water. Can you tell the listeners about that? Because that was amazing, and that brings a personal, living connection to water more than just something you drink.
So yes, it can. I'm trying to find it. So I wish I could do a split screen and show you this water images. Hold on.
You might be able to send it to Lance. Lance, is that something you could do?
I could.
I can do it in the video.
Yeah, but edit it in the video for later on. Yeah, because this is fascinating. While you're looking, Erin, trying to tell Spencer a little bit about what that was.
So what it was is her name is Veda, and she is a water researcher out of New Zealand. And I'll send them to Lance. And I met her through a fellow coworker about water. But she is in New Zealand, and she's a water researcher. And she has done 20,000 plus slideshows of this, that water hears you and can interpret a lot of things. And so she will send me, like, I'll show this. I don't know if you can see it, probably not with actually the lighting the way it is, but I'm going to have to send it to Lance. So she sends, oh, I know why that's doing that. I had to turn a flashlight on. What the heck? There we go. Is that no, it's still not going to work. So, oh gosh, long story short. So water reveals itself if you talk to it. It hears you. And it's unbelievable until you do it. She's done it over 20,000 times. It's legitimate research. But she pours tap water into a petri dish and freezes it because the ice crystals are saying something to you. The formation of water as it freezes. So she'll show you the petri dish and what the water looks like frozen. Okay, so you have an image of it came out of the tap, she froze it, and these are what the ice crystal formations are. So she asked me to think about water, and she got another petri dish and set it down, and she said, just talk to the water, Erin. And it sounds crazy, right? And I did, and she had said, whatever you're thinking, you don't have to say, but think about water. So as I'm having my conversation with the water, I'm thinking about being home in Kansas. And the water and its importance to our food and the wheat fields. So I was visualizing wheat fields swaying in the wind, and my heart was filled with joy. Just the wheat fields, just watching them sway in unison in the water. And it just all felt so really wonderful to me. And she took that Petri dish and froze it. And once it was frozen, she puts the crystals under a microscope, and the water had crystallized into wheat fields. And in the middle, it didn't fill in, but it was a heart.
It was amazing.
Okay. Had I not done it, it would have blown my mind. I have the images, and I'll send them to Lance so you can put it up. But there's an actual study that she's doing that can water perceive or hear your message, and it's telling you a story in its crystallized form. I did not say to her, I did not say to the water, I'm thinking wheat fields, but that's exactly what I was thinking. And the water crystallized into a wheat field formation.
Spencer, it was like, Spencer.
Yeah, but wait. Yeah, I was just going to say, did you any of you seen the What the Bleep Do We Know, the 2004 film that had Dr. I think Emoto talking about and they showed it on there. Yes. Okay. That is what you're talking about? That's Veda.
That's exactly what she does out of New Zealand, and it
was amazing.
It's her. Oh, I'm telling you, it blew. It just validated everything. We are water.
Yeah.
And we are energy, and we are so disconnected from it. We've lost ourselves. If you'll reconnect to it, you'll find yourself.
That video, they showed how anger and water was affected, and how they showed the crystals of the water were deteriorated and not as beautiful as the ones that you would say, I love you to the water.
It was amazing.
It sounds crazy, but it is
amazing. Hey, Erin, I know you're busy, and to close, what is something the listener can, when they hang up from this podcast, and what is, besides getting involved, what's some things they can do for not only their own health, but the health of their children, the health of their families, the health of their neighborhoods, and in this health crisis we're having right now, to get our immune systems working better? What's something that the people can do right now to start the ball rolling in the right direction? Because I think you're right. We're in a place that everything's been disrupted, and now we can start rebuilding a better, hopefully, and healthier society, a better and healthier mentally and physically. What's something we can start with right now? Well, he has an option.
Dog has a great idea.
I think your dog just nailed it.
His solution to everything is bark, so I'll go take him on his walk. That's all he needs.
That's all we all need.
I think, Terry, you and I have talked about this so often. And it's been a long journey for me in realizing this as well. Stress is a real killer. And I think for all of us, and the stress we're under, if you ask me, the first thing you can do is stop for a moment. Stop. Take a breath. Breathe. And just pull in the energy around you that here in Southern California, after all of our rain, you're going to feel today the warmth of the sunshine on a glorious 70-degree day. Yeah. Listen to the birds chirping. Be still and take it in, and realize that is you and you are it. And through everything it's been through, it can transform. And that's what has to begin with you as an individual. So if you're frustrated and lost, and believe me, I find myself that usually 100 times a day, when I get there, I'm going to ask you to stop, take a breath, Feel your own heartbeat. Let the positivity of the sunshine and nature get rid of all those negativity thoughts. And when you can get there, you're going to hear yourself think. You're going to feel yourself breathe. You can reassure yourself you can get through the day and begin again.
There you go.
That is the most important message I can leave. No one's going to do it for you. You can exhaust yourself trying to get someone to do it, but you have to yourself stop, breathe, and reboot.
You know,
That's step number one.
On that note, Erin, I think we're gonna call it. That's awesome, and I love you to death. You're amazing. So thank you for the journey. Thank you for the journey we've had. Thank you for the journey we just implored on, and that was pretty cool. Spence, you got anything?
Well,
Erin,
you'll see me Friday.
It was fantastic. Thank you so much. You're gonna get adjusted,
it was
huh?
so nice to meet you, and Lance, you're terrific, and yeah, Terry, you're gonna see me tomorrow.
All right, buddy.
I don't know what huge suitcase I threw across the room, but dang, my back was like, no.
Well, we'll get it taken care of as we always do, girl. All right, man. Thank you so much, and have a.
This is what happens, Terry, when you don't stop, breathe, and read.
Well, go out and breathe, and take that poor dog out for a walk. So I will see you tomorrow.
Oh, I know. That's their day. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Erin.
you. It was fun.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. You can find announcements and more on our Instagram at the Crackin Podcast. Give us a follow and let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in every Monday and Wednesday for a new episode at 7 a.m. CST. See you next time.